Hello guys, today I'll be talking about my top 5 favorite albums of 2021. This is in no particular order or anything, but yeah, 4 out of these 5 albums, I'm pretty much confident that these will probably stay in my top 5, but coming up with which album to take that last spot was really tough though, because the album that I chose and 2 other albums kind of fought for that spot, but I think I finally decided on what my top 5 is, so let's go ahead and get into it. Again, in no particular order, but first album I do want to talk about is The Nightmare of Being by At the Gates. This album, kind of a surprise for me personally, because I am a newer fan. I only got into At the Gates this year. And before getting into them, I knew about them, of course. Of course, they're legends when it comes to melodic death metal, but I finally got into them this year, and they had the album coming out, and it came out, and I instantly loved it. Especially those first 5 or 6 songs, I absolutely loved a lot. The title track may be a contender for being maybe one of my favorite songs of the year. I don't know, but I think it's a really strong album, probably their best since Slaughter of the Soul. And I've seen some other people say that too, or maybe say that it's their best since At War with Reality, but I have seen, again, some people say that's their best since Slaughter, and I'm gonna have to agree with that. Again, I think it's a really strong album, especially that first half is just pretty much flawless, in my opinion. You get into the second half, and you do get some solid stuff too. Such as the album closer, which I really like, but yeah, overall, I still really enjoy the album, and I re-listen to some of these albums in my list just to see if they're still probably my favorites of the year, and they are. So yeah, At the Gates, Nightmare of Being definitely had to make my top 5. Definitely a pleasant surprise for me. But anyways, next album I want to talk about is In the Court of the Dragon by Trivium. Wow, I enjoyed this album more than I expected, and to be honest, I was a little bit nervous that would be more of the same of what we heard from the previous album, What the Dead Men Say, which I like that album. I think it's a pretty good album, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't think the replay value for that album specifically has been the strongest for me. Again, still a fairly strong album, but I think this album is better than What the Dead Men Say. Probably one of their best, to be honest. Definitely in their top 5 best albums that they've done so far. It's definitely up there with Sin in the Sentence, Ascendancy, and Shogun, for sure. Probably my 4th or 5th favorite Trivium album, but yeah, some of my favorites being Like a Sword over Damocles, Shadow of the Abattoir. That was a song I instantly fell in love with. Really love that song. Definitely a unique song on the album too. From Dawn to Decadence, I can see that song ended up being one of their most underrated songs. I really like that song a lot. And The Phalanx probably being another favorite for me, and probably my favorite of the singles, to be honest. But an all-around strong album closer. But yeah, this album pretty dang good. Definitely had to make my top 5. So next we have Spirit Box with their album Eternal Blue. Now this album, another pleasant surprise for me, because I saw all the hype around this band during this year, and I was kind of just pushing it off a little bit, pretty much meaning that I was pushing off this album because I just didn't really care all that much. But eventually I came around to checking out the album. I was curious about the hype, so eventually again I checked it out and ended up really digging this album. Most of the album I pretty much enjoy. There are maybe a couple songs I think are just okay, or maybe just skippable for me, but overall, I think it's a pretty strong debut, and there are songs that I'm still enjoying from the album. Some of my favorites, Secret Garden, Holy Roller. The title track is maybe a contender for being maybe my favorite song on the album. I like that song a lot, and shows that they really have a strong ear for melody. We Live in a Strange World is pretty good, and of course you can't go wrong with the last 2 songs, Circle With Me and Constance. But yeah, then you have Yellow Jacket, which is a song that many fans have been talking about, and mainly because of course Sam Carter from Architects. And I'm gonna be honest, not a big Architects fan. I know I'm gonna get heat for what I'm about to say, but I think they're one of the most overhyped bands of this generation. Some people, again, might give me flack for that, and that's okay. Again, this is just my personal opinion, but I do like Sam Carter here in this song, though. I do think he's a good vocalist, but again, I just don't really get the hype for Architects, to be honest. There are many other metalcore bands that I'd rather listen to personally, but again, that's just me though. But yeah, again, overall, Spirit Box, definitely a strong debut. I'm definitely interested in seeing where they'll go next with future releases. So, next album I want to talk about is Sinjutsu by Iron Maiden. I got the box set. But yeah, that's what it looks like. If you want to, I'm pretty sure I did make an unboxing for this, so if you want to check that out after this video, go ahead and do so. But yeah, this album I enjoyed more than I expected. I think it's their best since either Dance of Death or Brave New World. I know some people like Book of Souls more, which personally I don't really get, but because I just find this album to be, I guess, more engaging or maybe a bit more interesting, but of course that's all subjective. That of course will depend on the person. But Sinjutsu, some of my favorites, probably the title tracks, Strategio, and Lost in the Lost World. Hell on Earth, definitely one of their best songs of their modern era, easily, and definitely my favorite of the epics on the album too. But yeah, overall, pretty strong album. I will admit, I think there's still room for improvement when it comes to the production, because production was kind of one of my problems with the previous album. I mean, the production didn't like hurt the album too much or anything, but it was, I guess, one of the flaws of the album for me personally. And I think this album is no different. I still think the production still needs some work, but I would say that I kind of like the production on this album maybe a little bit more. But yeah, overall, Sinjutsu, great album, and I know that they're coming to my city next year with Trivium. I'm definitely gonna go see that for sure. Whenever the tickets are available, I'm definitely totally gonna get them probably. But yeah, great album, definitely had to make my list. And now on to the last album here. We got A View from the Top of the World by Dream Theater. Now this album and those two other albums being Bold from Valentine's self-titled album and Aggression Continuum by Fear Factory, but ultimately I decided to go with View from the Top of the World. Now there was a period with this album where the replay value wasn't being the strongest for me, but I did re-listen to this album recently, and I think the album still holds up. I mean, of course, it hasn't been out for very long or anything. It only came out this year, but overall, I think it's a fairly good album. Not every song hits for me. There are maybe one or two songs that I'm kind of like on. That one of those being the Alien might be the only song. That might be my least favorite song on the album. I'm not sure how people will feel about that, but that song to me just feels like more of the same. Not a bad song, but again, it just feels like more of the same to me. But I do really like Answering the Call, probably one of my favorites on the album. I do get some Octavarium vibes, not the title track, but the album. And Invisible Monster, when it comes to their more melodic, I guess, hooky singles of their modern era, I think this is one of the better ones. That's just my personal opinion. Sleeping Giant might be my favorite song on the album. I really like that song a lot. And Transcending Time definitely gives me Rush vibes. So if you're not familiar with my channel, Rush is one of my favorite bands, and I have reviewed some of their albums on my channel. And if you haven't seen those reviews, definitely check them out after this video. Again, if you're a Rush fan, but I really like hearing the Rush influence from this band in that song, Transcending Time. Really good song. Awaken the Master, of course, has some of the heaviest moments on the album, and somehow isn't one of my favorites, but I do think it's a pretty good song though. Then of course we have the title track, the big epic, the title track View from the Top of the World, which is also pretty good. I think it's maybe on par with Illumination Theory, but of course nothing's ever going to be a Change of Seasons when it comes to their epics. That's probably the best one, probably one of my top 5 favorite Dream Theater songs. That song is pretty much flawless, excellent. I can go on and on about how amazing that song is, but either way, the title track, definitely really a strong way to close off the album. But yeah, this was an album that going into it, I was my expectations were kind of in the middle. I knew I was going to like it, but Didn't really think I was gonna love it because to me, again, just based on what I heard from the singles before the album came out, it felt like, to me, it sounded like it might be more of the same, and it's kind of be like, yeah. But I remember after my first listen, I remember thinking that I enjoyed it more than I expected, and just being kind of wowed by how much I enjoyed certain tracks, especially like again with Sleeping Giant and Transcending Time. But yeah, overall, fairly strong album. So yeah, that's my top 5. Let me know your favorite albums of the year. Let me know your top 5 or top 10, whatever you'd like. Or when it comes to your favorite albums, let me know favorite songs or least favorite songs from those albums and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.